Welcome to Daytona International Speedway. We're pleased to be joined by NASCAR Chairman and Chief Executive Officer Brian France. Brian, appreciate you taking some time today. Being the first time that this group has heard from you since you announced the new chase format, why don't we start out, just give your overall assessment of the season to date and what you expect going forward.
Well, other than the rain in particular here at Daytona when we started back in February and then the first 4 or 5 events, that was unfortunate for our fans and for ourselves. But other than that, the format, and I think we can all see the benefits of changing the winning importance. And it in fact has changed the racing on the track. There's no question about it. The drivers are telling us that they're taking different kind of chances. They're going for wins when they would have played it safe otherwise. And I think that's just going to get more intense as we close in on Richmond and we seed the field here. So we're very pleased with it. And we made, of course, a couple of changes to the what we call the rules packages that the teams compete with. We're not where we want to be on that, and we're embarking on a lot of work, a lot of science, technology, and innovation led by Gene Stephanician to get the very best racing product that we can on all of the tracks. And that's obviously a fundamental goal and responsibility at NASCAR. The difference is how we're approaching it. And so we expect the racing to continue to get better, and we certainly like the format. And I for one, I think most people are very excited and interested to see how the chase is going to play out this year.
Before we open up the questions, obviously the changes here at Daytona they're becoming very, very obvious, spectacular, I might say. Your impressions of Daytona Rising and really what it means for the entire sport?
Well, I've had a chance, of course, to see a lot of the design work and the amenities that will ultimately come online. And now, of course, now you're seeing the steel and the infrastructure. But I think when it's all said and done, as Joey says quite frequently, the only stadium, sports stadium for a racetrack in the country, our fans will really appreciate those benefits, the escalators, the social media zones, and all the rest. So I believe that it's going to be exactly what. And listen, this is we kick off our season. It's the biggest event, so it needs to be a spectacular place to come for our fans, and that doesn't even take into account the development that's being contemplated across the street, which will be another huge benefit for our fans and everybody else who in the industry when they come to Daytona twice a year.
Good. We're going to go ahead and open it up to questions. We have some wireless mics here in the media center. Also, I understand there's a few up in the press box. We'll get to them in a little bit. So we'll go ahead and open it up to questions for Brian France. We'll go for about 25 minutes in order to be able to get to the drivers' meeting. Any questions? Go right here to Jenna Fryer, and we'll go to Jeff Gluck.
Jenna Fryer, AP. I'll go with a little bit of an easy one. I know you're a big sports fan, Brian, and I don't know if you've been following the World Cup at all, or if you've been aware of the way it's resonated or it's captivated the country. Has anything about it resonated with you and could apply in a way that maybe NASCAR fans could get excited and do watch parties, or perhaps other angles of it have resonated with you?
Well, my experience with that is it's always organic. You can, try to do some things, and everybody does. But when there's sort of a wave of energy that gets created, and the Olympics brings that, right? And certainly the World Cup, we saw that a few years ago with the ladies' World Cup or the women's World Cup, and that was terrific. So good for them, and it's been good. It's been fun to watch.
Jeff Gluck, and then we'll go to Bob Pockruss and Brant James.
Jeff Gluck from USA Today. Hi, Brian. This season, Kyle Busch is... I'm over here. Sorry.
Where are you?
Here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
This season, Kyle Busch has won every single truck race he's entered, and in the Nationwide Series, there's been a lot of Cup guys, as usual, winning those races, and in many cases, for lack of a better term, stinking up the show. Has there been any more thought? I know there was some discussion earlier in the year. Has there been any more thought to putting a cap or limitation on Cup driver participation in the lower series?
Well, that's always a question, right? When a Cup driver gets in and has a lot of success, Mark Martin did that for a long time in the Nationwide, and there's always that balance. But where we usually come out on that is that the younger drivers gain valuable experience, even if somebody gets on a run and tends to win more events than is normal. So we try to balance that out, but we lean on the side of the greater experience for the younger drivers to get a chance to compete against, and also for our fans to want to watch, the elite drivers, not just on Sunday. So we tend to let the events unfold the way they unfold.
Go to Bob Pockras, Brant James, and then go ahead.
Bob Hocker, Sporting News. Brian, are you contemplating any changes to the percentage allocation of TV money as far as distribution to tracks and teams, or distribution among the 3 national series? And if you are, can you elaborate at all?
Well, we are looking at that because we start, of course, a new TV agreement beginning next year. So naturally, we are rethinking that a little bit, and in particular with the Nationwide teams as well. And but that'll be something that we will consider, and we will look at to make sure that the appropriate values are where they need to be.
Go to Brant James, Dustin Long, and then Nate Ryan.
Brant James, ESPN.com. Dennis McGlynn had mentioned in a story about attendance problems a while back that track revenue had become predominantly, I think he used the term, media-based. Promoters will always worry about selling tickets, but with the TV package seemingly really healthy, does the series at large worry about, empty grandstands except for the fact that it doesn't look good on television?
Sure, well, of course we do, and listen, that's one of the reasons Daytona is making a big investment to accomplish that, and a lot of other tracks are too. And some markets are just more challenged. Some are doing better than they did last year, so it's a mixed bag a little bit. On balance, attendance is up. Now there are some markets that have had a lot of pressure, and Dover's one of those. But it's very important because you got to remember something too. Unfortunately for for our industry, the speedways don't enjoy the public financing component that the major sports enjoy. That's a big difference. So they're having to, Daytona's $400 million of, and it'll be more than that when it's all said and done. When you factor all that in, that's private. That they have to make those investments, and we're hoping that gets better balanced over time. In other words, that communities, local governments, and so on, and states will, help grow these facilities like they do other stadiums and arenas.
Go here to Dustin, and then Nate Ryan, and then back here on the right.
Dustin Long, MRN.com. Brian, there hasn't been really an owner that's been able to come in and have sustained success, wins constantly up the front, maybe since like Michael Waltrip, several years ago. Obviously, earlier this year, there was an owner that come in recently that had to pull out. Is there a concern on NASCAR's behalf about who's coming in or trying to get ownership, new people to come into the sport, and what can be done to invite it, because it seems like it is a very high ceiling, a high barrier to entry?
Well, I'd agree with that, and I think that's part of when we talk about rules packages that get us better racing. We're also talking about lowering the barrier to entry. When we talk about the engine issue, which we talked about, lowering horsepower or whatever we're going to do, we're also talking about making sure that engine is relevant to a new manufacturer who may be who may, at this situation, in the current situation, we're not. So wherever you turn and whatever policies that we're trying to do, and we don't always get this right, and some of these they're all of them are complicated, and some of them take a long time to turn around and get things in the proper order that we want. But lowering the cost of racing, getting parity where teams can come in and have success, and in making ourselves more relevant to manufacturers and partners is all part of the NASCAR business model.
Are you seeing that progress at this point?
It's slow. It's hard, and it's slow and it's hard, but and it's gotten more complicated. That's why we're tackling the rules packages in the manner that we are. I was just in an hour-long presentation by Gene Stephanician, and it was remarkably different talking about the rules of the future on all of this stuff. It was all science, all what really costs, what really can work and give us the best outcomes in terms of, giving more drivers an opportunity to race hard, compete well, all those things that we're chasing and striving to all the time. There was no armchair discussion or a hunch that this might be a good direction for us to go. It's very, very analytical, and that's exactly why we brought him in, and that's exactly why we're resourcing whatever he needs to be successful, and we're gonna make a lot of progress as fast as we can.
Go back to Jerry, and then back to Jenna Fryer, and then Nate Ryan.
Jerry Jordan, Kicking the Tires. Recently, there's talk about changing the fan experience with regards to the souvenir row. Is there an inherent danger of changing that dynamic at this point or moving forward? How would you do that?
Well, we are looking at that, and that's one of the benefits we have is with the licensing trust that got formed a couple of years ago. It allows us to look at that more carefully, and we really want to, merchandise, have higher quality merchandise available in more places, and make it more convenient for our fans. And just how that gets done, the tracks and the teams and everybody else will come together and figure that out. But we do think there's probably some newer, better ways that we can merchandise to our fans.
Go with Jenna and Nate, and then we'll check upstairs in the press box.
Brian, you mentioned, I guess the question was specifically about Dover, but in a broader sense, some markets are just challenged. Yeah. How long do those markets get to be challenged before you have to take a harder look on if they can sustain holding multiple races?
Well, we don't have a timetable on that, and we don't like to think of it that way. We like to think that, historically important events work themselves out over time. And, and some of that is on us too. I mean, we've got to, constantly figure out how to make, our racing tighter, better. I mean, that's why we're doing, why I've spent so much time today telling you that we are zeroed in on that. And so, and I think that's because we don't put a timeline on that. We're working with our track operators, the ones that have more challenges than others, and we'll just have to work through it and try to get a good outcome.
Nate Ryan.
Straight ahead, Brian. Nate Ryan, USA Today Sports. You mentioned the business model of NASCAR, and we've seen in the last couple of weeks there have been some promotions, and there's also been news of some restructuring and a little bit of shedding of employees. We know that financially NASCAR is well positioned with the TV contracts. So could you shed any light on what's going on there? Is there a shift in where the IAP is going, or just why the recent kind of reorganization in NASCAR?
No, it's always difficult when you change things around and you combine some things, departments, or you change direction a little bit, and that's kind of where we are with what happened recently. But we're on a nice steady ground, and we're sponsorship is coming back for us, thankfully. That was obviously a hard hit in the recession, so there's the business is sound, and we're going forward.
Let's go up to the press box. Any questions from the press box?
Godwin Kelly, Daytona Beach News Journal. Brian, can you talk about Daytona Rising just a little bit more? Did you have any input into the structure here? And are they keeping you advised on how it's progressing?
Yeah, of course, and I'm obviously on the board of ISC, and it interests me what they're, in certain projects that they do. They don't, I don't go through every one of them, but this one I have, and I've seen the outside experts that they brought in to execute the plan. And they're some of the country's, best architects and engineers. I've done stadiums all over the country, so I think they've kept me up to speed, and I'm really excited about it. Usually I have a lot of comments to make when I get through with a presentation, and I didn't have a lot because they really had thought about every little detail, and I'm sure that there'll be something that they miss, but they're very thorough, and it's a great project.
And a follow-up to that, once this Daytona Rising project is complete, can you look to other promoters and track operators and go, okay, this is what your track needs to look like, 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Well, I think every track has to have its own identity, and it has to do what it thinks is important in the marketplace that they compete in. And now, I think will it be something that other tracks want to emulate? I think it will. I think like any good idea that works, assuming that it works, and it creates more interest, gives the race fan the most important thing, a better experience, so they want to come back more often for more events. Then I'm certain that other tracks will want to look at that business plan.
Any more from the press box?
No questions.
All right, let's come down here to Chris Knight. We'll go to Jim Noble and then back to Jerry.
Brian, Chris Knight, CatchFence.com. Just wondering if you had any concrete interest from any other manufacturers and the status of the nationwide sponsorship.
There is interest, always some a manufacturer or two taking a look at us simply because we're the largest form of motorsports in North America, and this is a big car market, so nothing certainly imminent there. And on the nationwide sponsor, very good interest, and I think in the coming weeks we'll be getting to the end of that process, and we will be in very good shape when the dust settles there.
Jim here, and then right back here, and then back to Bob Pockrass.
Jim Noble with ESPN and SiriusXM. Now that we're guaranteed to have a championship race in the last race of the season, the Cup Series, with a new format, how much thought has there been given, Brian, to moving that race around, making it more of a Super Bowl type thing? Or does the deal between Ford and Homestead Miami Speedway kind of preclude that for maybe the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I know when you talk to the Ford people and you talk to people at ISC at Homestead, they want to do whatever makes sense for that sponsorship. So that while yes, it's obviously for the finale down in Homestead, they are they're partners with us in every event. So there's nothing to preclude a change or a directional change down the road. But historically, we've liked the fact that to do it in South Florida, the weather is great that time of year, obviously. It's a good market for us. And the track, and this is an important thing, is by any definition the best mile-and-a-half track that the drivers believe that they have that they can really race hard and compete hard. And that matters too, right? That's a very important thing. So when you factor all those things in, we're going to be in Homestead for the foreseeable future.
Go to Dwight, and then back to Bob, and then we'll probably have time for one or two more.
Dwight Dorn, racetake.com. Could you come and take the fans to the process that you and NASCAR went through, the chase changes, going to 16 and then changing that last 10? That must have been quite a process to find something that works.
It always is. The best way to say it is we weren't pleased with the direction of drivers, and it was understandable, by the way, so it wasn't anything that anybody did wrong. But we were creating a formula for points racing, period. And that wasn't good in qualifying for the chase, and it wasn't good when we got to the chase. So we wanted to change that, and we also wanted to fix a couple things. One of them was that we didn't want to have a bad race or two take somebody out, early on in the chase, which has happened every year. So you're never out until the transfer race comes and you get a win and you're back in. So we wanted a format that accomplished all those goals, and most importantly, got the drivers to take chances, race harder because they can. They don't have to worry about a per se mistake or something like that. And we saw too many times down the stretch where there was a chance to go for a win, but understandably in the old format, no need to risk that if you're comfortably in the chase or if you're on the bubble. Even more important not to risk that. And we thought it was important to get racing changed around a little bit back to back to a different era, and we're really pleased that you're always worried about unintended consequences more than you are, is it going to achieve the goals? It's going to achieve the goals, but what else did we miss that, might be a negative, and we haven't found that yet, thankfully.
All right, last four. We'll go with Bob and Mark Long, Jeff Gluck, and finish up here with Dustin.
Bob Pockris, Sporting News. Chris Myers from Fox tweeted earlier today speculating that maybe Darlington might be moved to the second race of the year. Curious is that something that you are looking at, and how much changes do you expect in the 2015 schedule?
Well, it's a unique time because we're starting with a new television partner coming obviously next year. There's been some weather issues, as you well know, in the last several years at Bristol, as an example, and then some other things that we would naturally look at as we go along in the schedule. And now that the chase format is changed, there's additional interest to move from one place to another. So there'll be a robust discussion that will be, for those reasons, a more comprehensive look at what the best schedule will look like. I don't have any of the details today. We'll be releasing that in September, but it's fair to say that there's a robust discussion within the stakeholders to come up with, the best schedule that we can for 2015 and beyond.
Mark?
Yeah, Mark Long with AP. Cup drivers have won the last two nationwide races, and there hasn't been that same outrage that maybe like when a Kyle Busch wins in the lower series. So when you talk about limiting the number of times Cup guys can drive in lower series, is that really a Kyle Busch issue, or is it more of a Cup driver issue?
No, it's not. It's never an individual issue. Look, I said earlier, we have to balance that. It's true that that if a Cup driver dominates in a lower division, it's understandable why people will shake their head, and that we understand that, and we, as I said, we balance that against the idea that that fans like to see the younger drivers with the veterans, and the younger drivers, most of them, almost all of them, like to figure out where they're at on the skill curve, and so that's good for them to compete against. So, and it's unique to motorsports. It's that's how it's always been, and so, but we have to balance all this, and we'll do the best we can as we go along.
Jeff.
Brian, Jeff Gluck again. TV ratings and viewership have been down for a majority of the races this year. Are you concerned about that at all?
Well, they're down for obvious reasons. When you have a very low number in Daytona simply because of running the entire day and not finishing in the evening, and then lots of rain and lots of World Cup competition and other things. But when you go around and really look at it and look at all the digital interests that we have today on devices and whatever, and that's not obviously scored currently. We're real pleased with that. So when you combine it all up, we're not off that much, even with our challenges. We're still not off that much, and we've carried, I think, either one or two almost every weekend that we go in. I think 7 or 8 times we were number one coming in and out of the weekend on television. 7 million viewers a week on average. We're pleased with we're never pleased when our ratings are growing at the rate we would like, but we understand this is circumstances will always have us going one way or the other from time to time.
Finish up here with Dustin Long.
Dustin Long, MRN.com. Brian, a couple things. With Iowa Speedway, at what point do you look at considering that for a cup track? How do you assess the performance? And at what point also do you look at it in terms to an international event for your top series or the returning from the nationwide series to an international venue?
The first question on Iowa, we don't have plans for a cup date there. We're working with the state representatives and others to help us build racing in Iowa to the highest level that we can, and they're doing a great job with us, and couldn't be pleased with the entire effort that the communities have made in and around Iowa. But they've got a nice full schedule with IndyCar and Nationwide, and I think that's where that remains. Internationally, we've always liked when we've had opportunities to go to Montreal or Mexico City or even abroad for exhibition events. And when those opportunities present, we will certainly want to look at them. Are there any of those opportunities in the near future? Not in the immediate future, but that sort of changes around as well as we go down the road. So we'll have to see.
Thank you all for your good questions. Brian, thank you for your time. Gonna have a little bit of weather tonight. For those joining us on
a little bit of weather.
NASCAR.com.